Hello everybody, I'm Miss G and I'm going to try to make math a little easier for you today. In this video we're going to be talking about trigonometry, which is the process of determining a side on a right triangle when you have an angle and a side that you already know. There are three trigonometric formulas that we're going to use. We have sine of our angle is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine of our angle is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent of our angle is opposite over adjacent. Which one we'll use depends on which two sides that we're working with. The easiest way to memorize your formulas is to memorize the word so, ka, toa, which can be written like this, or my personal preference, like this. Because when you write it like this, it's really easy to remember the structure of the fractions. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. The process for solving a triangle like this first depends on which side is which. So we would start with the angle we know, in this case the 30, and that's going to mean we're working with G. And we would use that to label our three sides, starting with our hypotenuse, because that's the easiest one to label. We go across from the right angle, and that's always the hypotenuse. Once you've identified the hypotenuse as one of your sides, that leaves you with two sides remaining. Of those two sides, one of them is next to the angle you've identified. One of them is next to G. This is the side that's next to G. That makes it my adjacent. Whatever's left, we call our opposite. From here, we use these labels to choose one of our three trig functions. And because the opposite is what I want, I have to use it. The hypotenuse is what I know, I'm going to use it. The adjacent is blank because it's not the 30 is the angle. That makes the adjacent useless, so I'm going to skip the adjacent entirely and only use opposite and hypotenuse, which means I'm going to use sine, because sine of my angle is opposite over hypotenuse. From here, I'm going to plug in what I know. I know that my angle is 30, so I have sine of 30 equals my opposite, which I don't know, so I'm going to use its name, and the name of this side is FH. So I have FH over my hypotenuse, which is 8. My job now is to isolate the thing I'm looking for. I need FH to be alone. To do this, I'm going to start by taking whatever's on the bottom, whether it's a number or it's the thing I'm looking for, and I'm going to multiply it up and left to the very front. And that's going to turn this into 8 sine of 30 equals FH. Now, since the numbers are both on the same side of the equal sign, FH is already alone, which means I get to skip the next step entirely and go straight to the calculator. For that, I'll be using the Desmos Scientific Calculator, which you can find at desmos.com/scientific. And all I'm going to do is plug in what I've just written down. 8 sine 30 equals 4. And so FH is going to be 4. Now, unless you're told otherwise, for trigonometry, you almost always round to the nearest tenth. So for this, the answer I would write would be FH equals 4.0. Because if there's no decimal, we can always add a 0.0 to the end without changing our answer. For this problem, we're going to be using angle A because it has a number. The side across from my right angle is going to be my hypotenuse. The side next to my angle is going to be my adjacent because this is the side that's next to my angle. And the remaining side is going to be my opposite. Now I know I'm going to use opposite because it has a number. That means I'm either using sine or tangent. As for which of the two I'm going to pick, it's going to depend on whether I want to find the hypotenuse or I want to find the adjacent. In this case, I want AB, and the side going from A to B is this one, which means the side I'm looking for is my adjacent. So I'll be using opposite with adjacent, making it a tangent problem. So my formula will be tangent of my angle is opposite over adjacent. From here, I'm going to plug in my values. I have tangent of my angle, which is 56 degrees, equals my opposite, which is 9, over my adjacent, which I don't know. So I'm going to use its name, AB. From here, I'm going to take whatever's on the bottom and I'm going to multiply it up. So in this case, the bottom is AB, so it's going to move up and left, giving me AB tangent 56 equals 9. On the last example, we stopped here because the numbers were already together. In this example, that's not the case. AB is with tangent of 56, and my numbers are split by the equal sign. This means I need to cancel tangent of 56 from the left side and move it to the right. And that's always going to happen in the same way. I'm going to take whatever my trig is, I'm going to cancel it from the left by dividing, and that's going to put it here, underneath the number on the right side. So that means that AB is going to equal 9 over tangent of 56. And on my calculator, I'm just going to type 9 divided by tangent 56, which will give me 6.07, and so on. And since trig problems are usually rounded to the nearest tenth, I only want one decimal place, which means I look at the number after that and I decide if it's more or less than 5. In this case, it's more than 5, which means I need to add 1 to the number that came before. So my answer is going to be that AB equals 6.1. And that's the length of that side on the triangle. Here's another problem where we have an angle we know and a side we know, and our goal is to find a side. That makes it a trigonometry problem. We start by identifying our hypotenuse, which is across from 90. Since the angle that has a number in it is this corner here, the side next to that corner is going to be my adjacent, and the side that I haven't labeled will be my opposite. I'm going to use two of these three sides in my trig problem. I'm going to use the one that has a number and the one that has my question. In this case, it's opposite and adjacent, which makes it a tangent problem, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. Once I have my formula, I'm going to plug in the things I know. My angle is 16. My opposite is unknown, so I'm just going to put a question mark. You can also leave it as op if you want, or you can give it a variable, but I'll just leave it as a question mark. And my adjacent is 24. From here, you always take whatever's on the bottom and move it to the left. So I'll have 24 tangent 16 equals my unknown side. And since both numbers are on the left, I'm ready to use my calculator. 24 tangent 16 is going to equal 6.88, and so on. Which, when I round, will become 6.9 because the number after the tenth is bigger than 5, which means we need to add 1 to the number that came before. If the number after my tenth had been less than 5, I would have just left it as 6.8. But in this case, my unknown side is going to be 6.9 units long. For this last example, our goal is to figure out what DE is. So that's going to be this side here. Now I know this is a trig problem because we have an angle with a number in it, a side with a number on it, and a side that we want to find. To solve it, I'll start by identifying my hypotenuse, which is going to be across from my 90. In this case, it's the thing I want to find, so I'm definitely going to use that when I solve my problem. Then I'll identify my adjacent by figuring out which side is next to the angle that I know. Since the angle that I know is here, of the two remaining sides, the one next to it is the 14, so that makes it my adjacent. Whatever side is left is going to be my opposite. Of the adjacent and the opposite, the one that has a number is the one I'm going to use. The opposite I don't need because it's neither the thing I want, the question mark, nor is it the number. So it doesn't help me. Which means, according to SOHCAHTOA, I'm going to use cosine, because cosine uses adjacent with hypotenuse. My formula is going to be that cosine of my angle is adjacent over hypotenuse, and I'm going to plug in the things that I know. Specifically, my angle is 60 degrees, my adjacent is 14, and my hypotenuse, which I don't know, is going to be called DE. Once I've set up the problem, the first step to solving is always to take whatever's on the bottom, whether it's a number or the thing that we're looking for, and move it up and left, which is going to give me DE times cosine of 60 equals 14. Now, if the numbers are already together on one side of the equation, I can stop and go to my calculator. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. So because my numbers are separated by the equal sign, that means that the thing I'm looking for, DE, is not alone. So I have to take whatever my trig is, and I have to cancel it from the left side by putting it underneath the right side. Essentially, I'm dividing both sides by cosine of 60. And that's going to give me DE equals 14 over cosine of 60. And on my calculator, I'll type 14 divided by cosine 60 to get my answer, which in this case is 28 exactly. But since we're told to round to the nearest tenth, I'm going to need to put a decimal zero at the end in order to have the official correct answer. So for this problem, the answer is that DE equals 28.0. I hope I've helped you to understand trigonometry a little bit better. And if you want to help me out by hitting those like and subscribe buttons, I would greatly appreciate it. But if not, I still love you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Bye, everybody.